What's up, Bolcuts? You're listening to another episode of Am I the Bolcast? I am really excited about this one. As you can see by the episode title, we've got a really special guest with us today. Before we get to that, before we get to introducing him, I'm doing a little bit of plugging and some sponsor talk before we introduce the interview portion. As always, this episode is brought to you by Cardsphere.com. Cardsphere, get your cards here. Sign up using the referral link in the description of the episode and get to trading online. I don't know what the timeline is right now. Is it still Turtle time? What's the next set? The Hobbit? Who knows? Get into whatever you're into and start trading cards. I'm at a point where I'm foiling out a bunch of decks, so I'm perusing Cardsphere.com from many sets ago to find some really niche cards that I really want in foil. I just got a Crackle Burr online that I had a hard time finding at the LGSs near me. Came right in, and I'm very happy with it in my Sanar Innovative First Year deck. I cannot recommend Cardsphere.com enough. Please make sure to use the referral code, the referral link in our description as mentioned before. As always, this episode is also brought to you by BoneboxGames.com. Bonebox Games, they make amazing deck boxes and products. You can get into their new stuff. I know that they teased one that I talked about a couple episodes ago that I just simply cannot wait to get my hands on. So make sure to go over to boneboxgames.com and use promo code BOLCAST for anything you purchase on their website. That does it for sponsors. Just be sure to check out edhrec.com. My column, Am I the Bolus? Oh, I wonder what this podcast is about and what this column's about. The column that spawned this podcast, available Wednesdays on edhrec.com, at Mike Carosa on all platforms, at Am I the Bolcast on Blue Sky. Shout out to Indigo Gentleman, aka Morgan, our super producer on Blue Sky, and GamesFreakSA.info for all things Michael Solani. Don't forget to check out Recommander.cards. Really great site. I've been using it from time to time when I'm really stuck with a brew. You know, I'm just got EDHREC and Recommander.cards, both tabs, just kind of going through it and having a lot of fun with brewing lately. So really excited to see what comes next. I am currently looking at the new Garland from the scene boxes of Final Fantasy, but also revisiting the Master Form New. They share a lot of DNA. So am I really going to go down that route, or am I going to finally build a Dia from the Final Fantasy? Too many decks. Plus, some of the turtle stuff looks great. Krang and Shredder looks like so much fun. So just make sure to head over to cardsphere.com and get your cards, Bonebox Games to get your deck boxes, and now we're going to move on to chatting with our guest, because it's a Hall of Famer, baby. Literally. You're listening to Am I the Bolcast, the only podcast about Magic the Gathering that you're listening to right now. I'm your host, Mike Carosa, and today we've got a guest that, let me see, I can introduce in so many ways. So many ways. You've already read the description of the episode. The title's in your face. You know who's here, but I'm going to let him introduce himself. So please, my sweet guest, why don't you tell people at home who I'm talking to today?
Well, hello, I am Brian Kibler. These days, I am one of the hosts of the YouTube Commander show, Commander at Home, alongside my fiancee, Olivia. I'm also a former Magic Pro player, member of the Magic Pro Tour Hall of Fame. I've done Magic design work. I consulted on foundations. I've worked in a bunch of other, games, game design stuff, competed in other games, streamed, yada, 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 yada. Yeah. So as you're saying, a lot of different ways I could potentially introduce myself on a gaming related show.
Yeah, tons of ways. You've had like the craziest career. It's so much fun. So glad that I remember the moment that I found out that you started playing Commander, that you turned your attention towards playing some Commander and being like, okay, this guy's going to be the spikiest there is. I think at the moment a pro gets into Commander, I'm like, all right, this is going to be, at the time we didn't have the language for it, but like bracket 4 or CDH exclusive. And then it's like, nah, I love seeing what you pull out on Commander at Home. You've got a Regalia deck, the car from Final Fantasy. That's insane. And it's just so much fun to see how you've been treating Commander as a place to play, and that's just like, that's how it is, baby. That's what's up.
Yeah. I mean, I've had a lot of people ask me like, "Oh, you know, you gonna get into CDH? Like, do you want to
Hmm.
play like that kind of commander?" And I'm like, "Absolutely not." Right? Like, I can appreciate that people enjoy it, right?
Sure,
But to me, if I want to play Magic competitively, I'll go play on the Pro Tour,
buddy.
right? Like, it is not the commander to me is not the place where I am interested in finding that kind of relationship and interaction with Magic. And a lot of it has to do with just the fact that a multiplayer free for all game just really doesn't lend itself well to an actual competitive environment, right? Like I
Okay.
read descriptions of events from people who are like into CEDH and they're like, and I convinced everyone to draw. I'm like, that sounds horrible,
That sounds like my
right?
nightmare.
Like,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah, it's like if I want to play the game Diplomacy, I'll go play the game Diplomacy, right?
yeah.
If I want to play Magic, I'll play Magic.
That's the thing is like to me it's kind of like if I get to if I even work myself up to the point of being competitive, right? If I'm like
Mhm.
I'm in a competitive mood, I'm reaching for cube, draft,
Sure.
or sealed. And that's kind of
Yeah.
where it's at. Cuz if I think about CDH, I'm like first of all, the meta is I'm barely paying attention, but secondly, you hear about these tournaments going so long because we're stalling on a stack and having like a several hour discussion about
Yeah.
what's to come and you're like this isn't
Yeah,
it for me.
that is just not an experience that I'm looking for. Like I see people post about like CDH tournaments. They're like, oh, I'm 1 win, 3 draws or whatever. Like maybe I can make top 16. I'm like, that just is not what I am looking for from competitive
Oh
Magic,
yeah,
right?
yeah. To me, it just
It's
feels
not
like
like
if
the
we're
negotiation.
exactly the negotiation part isn't for me. If it was just kind of like the expectation is everybody plays to their outs and we're actually being competitive, and you watch a
Mhm.
4 pot of literally competitive EDH without all the chitter chatter, I'm looking at that and going, I get the appeal, still not for me, but I
Yeah.
understand what we're going for. When I hear about these hour-long negotiations about the minutia behind like if this doesn't get a counter, then maybe we'll consider not fierce guardianship or we want to
Right.
fork the nightmare. I
Yeah.
I have been allowing myself to get a little sweaty at like pre-release events against players who don't seem new, and that's where I get that out
Yeah.
from. If it's
Sure.
someone
Sure.
I've played against before, I'm like, I'm ripping it. We're playing. The sweatiest I get is I play for the pack and then I lose the pack, and that's it. It just isn't my
Yeah.
speed. And so when you were like, I'm starting out playing some Commander, and I was like, Jesus, this is gonna be this is gonna be a clinic in some kind. Like I don't know how you're gonna break it, but then I see one of your pet decks, Rith the Awakener, one of the
Yeah.
earliest. I'm like,
So yeah, my Rift
how?
deck is only cards I've played in high level Magic tournaments like Pro Tours, Grand
Which is
Prix, World
beautiful.
Championship, things like that. I had another deck I built recently that was based on like a text conversation I had with Matt Mercer, where I
Okay.
got like a recommendation on my TV that was like, you liked the Mighty Nine, you might also like SpongeBob SquarePants. So I shot him this text about it, and he's like, "Oh yeah, it's a shared universe." So I made a deck that had SpongeBob, Joda as the commander, and all
Unbelievable.
the cards are references to characters and things from the first 2 campaigns of Critical Role. And
Wonderful.
the deck. The funny thing is, the deck actually can do powerful things because Joda is such an insane card.
Joda is a
It's just
brutal
like
card to
it's so
have.
stupid.
It's the
It's
one
like
card that they're like, let's reskin this till it's done. And it's not going to be done. The only acceptable Joda deck that I could think of is one where there's a gimmick like this, like where it's like
yeah,
I have to be all in on theme, or here's my Joda deck, and it's like a 60 card deck, and then like no wait, here are the 40 other cards, like here are
yeah.
like 3,000 other legends that I could shuffle in, and I'm gonna pick
I
40.
actually talked to someone recently who had a deck that was like that. It was like, they just had whatever sort of set version of the deck, and then they shuffled in 40 random legendaries to make the rest
Exactly.
of their deck.
It's the
Yeah,
most fun way to do it. I have a buddy of mine working on a slivers deck that way because there's so many slivers that you can like do the same
sure.
for. It's kind of what like okay, it makes it a little bit more palatable that you're like not sure what you're gonna hit. There's a bit of a gamble thing. I don't know. Have you played against AD? Rachel's fiance AD
Yeah.
has a
Hmm.
Cody deck where it's Cody, so he's trying to get to like radiate and really ridiculous spells, but He's also thrown in a couple whammies in there. He says, like,
Okay.
some
One with
real.
nothing, like
Yeah. I bet that thing's in there. I wouldn't be
it's like
surprised.
it's a choose your own adventure Cody book, right? It's like turn to page 63. You die.
You die, exactly. Yeah. He's got what is it? Kapow, I think is like, or not Kapow. It's Kaboom is the magic card from like, God, I want to say Onslaught. Am I crazy? It feels like one of them. It's from Onslaught. Choose any number of target players, planeswalkers. For each of them, reveal cards from the top of your library until you reveal a non-land card, and then it deals damage equal to that mana value to a player. Yeah, I mean, and oh god, what a silly card to have in there.
You need to have like Final Fortune. You're just like, well, I guess I have to win next turn.
I better win. I better win. Or
that's funny.
What's oh god, what's that one that's just like the end the turn card? Time stop, I want to say.
Yeah.
Just
time stop.
End the turn. Full stop. Discontinuity. End the turn. It's just like, okay, great. I didn't think I was gonna go off this turn anyway. It's just fun to build around that kind of requirement, right? You're like looking at your deck and thinking, this is gonna get real boring real fast unless I'm always playing in these like environments where people are expecting something this tuned. And honestly, I feel like Commander's a lot more fun when you have something a little bit more fragile, or a little bit, or at the very least entertaining if it's gonna be busted.
Yeah. So I've talked like a number of times about this, and Olivia and I actually even recorded a potential podcast style thing for our own channel, which is basically like I view Commander deck building kind of like game design, right? Because unlike in like a competitive environment, you're not just like trying to build a deck to win, right? You want to build a deck that is creating an experience for yourself and everyone else at the table.
Yes.
Right. So you don't want to just like have a deck that does the same thing all the time, because you're going to get bored playing it. People can get bored playing against it, and you want things that create cool, fun, memorable experiences.
Right.
And weird, quirky theme decks can do that. Decks that kind of have like big, crazy things they do can do that. And it's one of the reasons that like I have certain kind of like deck building philosophies that I follow. Like I don't really like playing tutors in basically any of my decks.
Me neither.
Because it just makes more games play out more similarly, and it slows down the game because you have to go find the cards that you're looking for and things like that. Like I'll have like some like thematic tutors in some decks. Like I have like Tiamat in my Dragon deck, right?
Fair. Yeah,
but
that's a fun one.
I don't have demonic tutor in any deck.
Yeah,
I have no mystical tutors. I have like enlightened tutor. I put in one deck ever, which was like a deck that I built based on a standard deck that was an Any Joins Up deck, and I'm like, well, I want to find my Any Joins Up because it's the whole point of this deck. And when you're doing that, right, like you're minimizing that. You're not just seeing like, well, I'm going to go get Soul Ring. I'm going to go get Rhystic Study. I'm going to go get Smothering Tide.
Oh, God.
And it's just like the games, you sort of, kind of sigh when it's like, yeah, it's another one of these games.
Or groan, like it's, I've been on this forever, dude. I'm right there with you. For me, it's always been the same thing, which is like tutors feel like they kind of go against the format, the feel of the format. And kind of like I only have one deck where I run tutors, and it was my Pride deck, like the Pride event that they did last year or the year before, where you had 2 partner commanders that don't have partner. And then I just like liked the deck enough that I made a deck with somebody else at the helm and put in tutors so I can go get those 2 creatures. But they remained on theme, limited tutors, and that's it. But that's kind of like, even then when I was doing that, I was like, I feel dirty doing this. It doesn't feel like something I want to do. And when it comes to land tutors, I'm fine with land tutors as long as they're, not going to fetch Field of the Dead and Glacial Chasm and.
Well, yeah, like things like, a Cultivate or, Nature's Lore or whatever. That and part of the reason I think those are fine, not only is it like, well, it's just making your deck work, right? It's not like, it's not like the thing that defines the game.
Less non-games is what it is.
Yeah. And it also, it's something you can shortcut. So, because like one of the other problems with tutors is like, when people are like, okay, I got to find it, whereas with a land tutor, you're like, I go get this and I'll cast this, go. Right. And you don't need to actually find the card you're looking for with like a fetch land. You just like, I'll fetch whatever land, your turn, and play the spell.
Yeah.
And it's something that like doesn't have the same, kind of mind melting, time. It's like, especially when someone plays a tutor and they don't know what they want to get.
Oh,
That's the
dude.
worst, right?
There must have been there. I remember somebody, like, this was a long time ago. Somebody suggesting putting in tutors into like a pre-con upgrade for like
Oh,
new
sure.
players. It's like hey, new player, you just bought a pre-con for the first time. Here's some cards you're definitely gonna want, and it's like whatever tutor. And I was just like, no, you don't do that. That's like the worst thing to hand a new player. Let them get used to peeling stuff off the top of the deck. It also adds so much interesting tension, right? If
Yeah.
you're not playing a tutor, you're trying to draw into something. Sometimes you end up with one of these like top deck moments. You're like, it's lightning helix, baby. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, exactly.
you got to get those moments in. Is there any better moment than the called shot of Cruel Ultimatum mana into flipping it? Like, it's just part of the fun of the game is having these moments and letting them breathe and like actually making them possible. And so to me, the idea of tutors, completely agree. Not really my thing. Are there other ways that you find yourself like that deck building to maybe gear towards the experience, or like things that you find yourself not doing to better influence your gameplay and like your experience with it?
I mean, I tend to like avoid playing pretty much any of like the game changer stuff, not
Yeah.
because they're game changers, but because they are game changers because they make games, kind of
Completely agree.
less fun for the most part,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And it's interesting because a lot of people, I think that I am not a huge fan, or rather, I'm not convinced that the bracket system does things that much better than, say, the old power level system that people
Yeah.
tend to use. That, but I do think that the game changers list is great because it basically indicates some cards. It's like, hey, maybe think twice before putting this in your deck.
Yes.
And maybe especially think twice about putting these in all your decks, right? Like, I have been Cyclonic Rifted and Rhystic Studied and Smothering Tithe like enough times for several lifetimes.
Yeah.
Right. And it's like, it's not to say that oh, you're a terrible person if you play these cards, or games are worse when they include these cards,
Right.
as long as everyone's kind of on the same page. But I think that the game changer list really is great at highlighting, like, people are going to like sigh or groan when you play these cards.
Yeah.
Understand that, right? Like,
just a heads up, not everyone's gonna love this the way you do right now.
Like, I have literally cast Rhystic Study one time in Commander. I have cast it more times in like competitive 60 card constructed as a sideboard card in my Nethergo deck against Rising Waters.
Oh
back,
my god!
Like 20 something years ago in like block constructed. Right, that was actually in my sideboard at the
constructed.
the 2000 World Championship. It was block constructed, and it was masks block constructed.
Right.
And yeah, that was in my sideboard of my blue black like thwart foil Nether Spirit deck against Rising Waters decks.
Rising Waters, man, what a card. I tell you what, that Masks is the block where I started to understand the game a lot more. I started at like 7th edition-ish, right? So I was like, but man, Masks has a really special place in my heart, and to be like, yeah, this is Rhystic Study and constructed, that's crazy. Can you man, that's crazy. I don't think I knew that.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think many other people have played that card in constructed formats, right? It wasn't exactly a staple.
No, that's fair. Yeah, do nothing enchantment that maybe nets you one card on the next turn.
But specifically in like a resource battle in a low mana environment, because of stuff like Rising Waters, where you have like, thwart foil daze type stuff going on, a bunch of free spells, it was a very powerful card. Right, like when you were like, they tap out for something, you play Rhystic Study, and they're like, oh, okay, well, now everything is so much worse for me, right? So it was very, very good in that very narrow matchup in a very narrow metagame, a very narrow format.
Masks is also one of those like blocks where you're like, why'd you have to do stuff to sacrifice land so much, like, or like bounce a land? Yeah, just a wild block altogether. It's fun to feel nostalgic for a block that everybody's kind of like, this was one of the worst. And I'm like, I don't know. I liked it quite a bit. Yeah, I guess the game changer list. So to touch on your point earlier about the bracket system, because this podcast is an offshoot of my column with EDHREC.com, where I, and originally from Commander's Herald, so shout out Commander's Herald. where people write in their submissions and I talk about them in the article. I comment on the story and answer whether or not they are the bolus. Now,
Yeah.
with the new bracket system, for the last 6 or 7 months, every submission has been a fundamental misunderstanding of what the bracket system really is. The idea that they're not having a conversation beyond going this 2 or this 3 now play is just kind of like it flies in the face of the entire intent of it. And what I also find frustrating is that the idea that the bracket system is they still being used within like play groups that have established vibes as the end all, you know? So like a lot of play groups will write in and be like, yeah, we just sit down. He's like, it's a bracket 2, but we know how he builds and he pilots it like it's a 4. And, you know, we're all trying to play the bracket 2 experience. And yeah, so what am I the bolus for thinking that that's not how it goes? And it's like, yeah, I mean, like a little bit, you guys should further that conversation. The bracket system is a means to begin the conversation, but
it's the baseline.
Yeah,
right.
It
like
really
the
is.
whole point of it is that this is to start conversations around, you know, the kind of experience that people are looking to have, and the general kind of like vibes and game plans of decks that people are bringing to the table. Right.
Exactly.
Because I see people talking about like, oh, my store has a bracket 3 tournament. It's like, what does that even mean?
What does that mean?
Like, it just means that like the rules are that you can play 3 game changers. That's basically what it seems to mean.
That
to
feels
me.
like it. Yeah.
Like that's the rule with deck building, and it's like because like there aren't other defined things within, you know, the brackets. They're just kind of, and the whole point is that they're guidelines, right? That these are a place to start with these conversations.
Exactly.
And that is, it's very important for people who are, you know, having issues with it to realize that like, yeah, this isn't ever intended to be and will never replace those conversations about the kind of experiences that people are looking for.
Yeah, totally. It's kind of like people forget that the first bracket weekend kind of was like Chicago 2 years ago at the Magic Con, where people were like, okay, now we're really testing it in like a bigger environment. It goes live as a beta. And it was very useful to begin the conversation with these people that you're meeting for the very first time. And then the thing is, I didn't quite find it useful with my play group at home. We just got used to each other. And as long as you're open with each other and able to have that conversation, it's not like you leave the bracket system behind. It's still a good place to start with your deck building and being like, I guess this is kind of where we land most often. But it definitely matters to just like keep chatting. If everybody's kind of like cool with like, hey, I don't think Coalition Victory is worth having on the Game Changer list, and I kind of just want to play it. Yeah, cool. Hey, I think you can build a bracket 1 deck around Coalition Victory. It doesn't automatically bump it to a 3, you know? So yeah, I just I have a bit of bracket fatigue from the fact that most of my inbox for the column has been, so this is supposed to be a bracket 4 game and this guy's playing CDH or well, that's a bad example because the only difference is the meta, but you know what I mean. An interesting topic came up recently, and I'd like to hear what you're thinking. Like, is a tuned mana base, can a tuned mana base be the difference between a bracket 2 and a 3, or like or knock up a bracket, you know? Isn't that interesting?
I mean, I don't know, man. Like,
isn't that tough? It's tough.
It is very much one of the sort of spaces. I do think one of it does kind of illustrate, I think, one of kind of the viewpoints that I see a lot of people have, which is they see expensive card and they think that means high tier power deck or whatever.
Yeah.
Like I own a bunch of like original dual lands that are in a binder that I don't put into my decks, not because it's like, oh, they're too powerful or like I don't want to, you know, I don't want to damage them or whatever. I obviously don't want to damage them, but it's like not the reason that I don't play them. The reason is because the reaction that you get when you play like a tropical island or an underground sea is like, oh, it's gonna, you know, it's this sort of deck, it's this sort of game, right?
Oh,
and the difference in Commander between like tropical island and breeding pool is very small.
So small.
Right? Very small. But the perception difference is astronomical.
Completely.
Right? So I just, and especially for the show, right? Like I don't want to like, have people watching the show and being like, oh, this is like a, you know, $5,000 deck because it has a ton of dual lands.
Right.
Like I have multiple 5-color decks that don't play any original dual lands because I'm just like I just don't want to have people have that reaction. And to a certain
Exactly.
extent, I get it because there is like very much the sort of, the economic system of Magic is one that is very frustrating to people,
Huge topic.
especially with the sheer number of products that we're getting, and I think that kind of creates this feeling of, oh, well, I can't play that deck, I can't play that game.
Mhm.
And I want to try and avoid that again, especially with stuff on the show.
Right.
I want to make sure that people feel like, outside of like Dragon, which is like, holds barred, I'm putting all
Totally.
there's 10 fetches, 10 dual lands and whatever in it.
Yeah.
I just don't want people to like have the feeling of like, oh, you're a Magic influencer and you have all this stuff that I don't have, so I can't have that same cool experience that I watched you have. Right. But I think realistically, the actual impact of those cards on a game is very small.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you, especially when it comes to dual lands. I think that like I agree with some people because this came up in an article recently, and it ended up being like such a long comment thread with a lot of people arguing about it, which is to say that one play group wrote in almost collectively there was like this debate amongst them saying we're in bracket 2, but I build my land bases to be optimized, and the rest of them think that this is not part of the bracket 2 experience. And they're
Sure.
running, guild gates or whatever as their dual lands. And I'm running the surveil land or I'm running shock, right?
Yeah.
Yes, there's a lot of value to be gained for surveilling one off a fetch into a shock, and you're smoothing things out. And it is like a bit of a tempo hit for sure, but I don't think that it's like huge when we're talking about silly theme decks or
Yeah. I will say that I do think that like the biggest difference in terms of mana based stuff is how many tap lands are you playing,
Mm,
right? And like how many like I think that the difference between a deck with guild gates versus a deck with say like Ice Age Pain lands, right? Like a Dark Hour
okay.
Waste and
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah.
Like a dark like the damage you take from shock lands or pain lands or whatever, it can matter,
Hmm.
but it matters much less than you are behind a turn because you drew a tap land on a key at a key moment.
Right.
Right. And similarly, like having access to like fetch lands for triomes and surveil lands, like
Hmm.
that's all appreciable advantage that is meaningful.
Hmm.
It's not the sort of thing that like makes a massive difference
Right.
in most games, but when it matters a ton.
Sure.
Right, like you can have oh, like if someone is missing like some amount of colored mana, or
Hmm.
they have a tap land like a key point, like they get to do less in the game than the person who had the better mana base, and that does make a very big deal. So I do think that like it's basically every deck that I build, I try to have like a pretty optimal outside of actual dual land mana base,
Hmm.
because I think that a game being decided because I couldn't cast my spells just isn't very fun.
Agreed.
But for people who don't have access to that or don't build their decks that way,
Hmm.
they will have more of those experiences that I will, and it will make my deck in the long run
Hmm.
meaningfully more powerful than theirs.
Right. I can definitely concede to that. I think that like when we're talking about two colored decks, it's largely like, look, put more basics in. Like that's kind of where
Yeah.
I'm at with like first of all, I've been rolled by like I've had fully optimized mana bases and been completely rolled by a monocolored deck or even a colorless deck like
Oh,
very
sure.
easily. But when you're watching your buddy play like another tap land in a 3-color deck and it's not on color or anything, that is a little bit difficult to because it does force a bit of a non-game in that way. But I mean, if you're playing 2-colored decks, this is my PSA: play more basics over
Yeah.
what. Like, yes, your optimal line base is going to include more basics. I tell you that much for sure. Honestly, I've been like de-optimizing a couple of my 2-color decks to just be more basics. It's been a lot of fun. It's less thinking.
Yeah.
I'm going to go, hey, I played, hey, here's my Kodama's Reach. Oh, there they are immediately.
Yeah.
It's like it doesn't matter,
I there was a period when I was building a bunch of monocolor decks, both because we were running low on dual lands, on good lands, right? Like I was running low on shocks and fetches, and because it's just an interesting challenge,
Yeah.
right? It's just an interesting puzzle of like, oh, okay, I want to make a mono white deck, a mono green deck, a mono blue deck, or whatever, mono red deck. And although amusingly enough, Olivia and I both have only monocolor decks in 4 of the colors. I
Which
don't
is the
have black. She
missing
doesn't
one?
have green.
I knew it.
We
I knew
each of
it.
our other like sort of like
Big
core
color.
color, which is pretty funny. And it wasn't something like we decided. It just kind of was how it played out.
That's so funny. I
Yeah.
can't believe that. That's honestly, that's too perfect. It's literally. I think of you. I'm like, you're the big green guy. You're Mister
Yeah.
Big Stompy, Mister Dragon. Olivia, I'm like, what's an Olivia deck without black? You know, it's like, that's so funny that the missing piece is literally your favorite. That's unbelievable. That's so good.
Yeah.
I think, was there anything? You know what? I just wanna let's see. Is there anything else I want to touch on before we get into your story, your pet peeve? I do. Okay, I want to say, because we've met each other like 2 years ago or a year ago or something. We've gotten a couple games in when you were in town in Montreal, and I will say, watching you on the channel is already fantastic, but being in person, seeing how you see everything on the board is extremely intimidating. It is. I remember we played at the shop. Shout out L'Expedition in the South Shore, and also there's a couple in Montreal itself, but South Shore locations where we played. I remember we were playing a game, and I was like, okay, well, there's going to be a lot of triggers here, and I'm trying to count them all. And you're like, okay, well, don't forget that there's this on this board here, and Olivia's got this, and we also know that I revealed this from the top of my library, which is something to consider if you're doing the mill thing. And I'm like, great, that's crazy. You already have it itemized. It is, and I'll say this because it's like, you never know. Okay, there's a little bit of a starstruckness, even though we're pals. It's like there's like a level of it where it's like, this is a Hall of Famer. This is a guy who's designed for the game. Obviously, the mind is there, and I will say it was an absolute privilege and a pleasure to witness it in action. Just completely being like, hot damn, dude, you. And this was you at the end of the day being like, I'm pretty tired. I'm like, I'm like, you're outplaying anybody at the table right now. This is crazy. What are you talking about? You're tired. So I just want to say, very impressive to witness, and
Well, thank you.
very
Thank
cool,
you.
man.
Yeah, I mean, I it's just kind of second nature to me, because I have
Totally.
spent so much time playing Magic and playing Magic in competitive environments
Mhm.
where it's very important to keep track of everything.
Yeah.
Right. And I will say one of the things that I always find very funny is how so many new players learn Magic via Commander,
That's
because
crazy.
Commander is by far
Easily
the most complicated Magic format. Like people say
100%.
like, oh, it's like Legacy or Vintage or whatever. It's like, no. In Commander, there are 4 people playing the game with 4 boards, which have a bunch of unique cards, and like you have to keep track. I mean, you don't have to. That's the thing.
Mhm.
The difference is most people don't really care who wins.
Sure.
So like it doesn't matter that you can't keep track of anything, but at the same time, even if you don't really care who wins, a lot of people don't like to feel dumb because they missed something,
Agreed. Yes.
right? And that is, I mean, I could go on a whole tangent about this, like regarding sort of a lot of elements of game design for how a lot of games are made. But like it's one thing that you see a lot less of in modern Magic design is like onboard trick type stuff, especially in like limited formats,
Yeah.
that you can just get totally screwed by. Like most things are sorcery speed only if there's a sort of trick that could, like, especially in lower rarities in limited formats,
Mhm.
because like just being like, oh, you had that, so like the thing I did was useless, or maybe worse than useless, actively
Exactly.
detrimental to me. And that's one of the reasons that like I will try to keep track of so much that's going on in a Commander game, because I don't want someone to be like, oh, I missed that and now I feel dumb.
Right.
Right? Like I want everyone to have a good time.
Totally.
So like, I see sometimes people who like, will play a Commander game and like they just kind of get someone with something, and it's like, yeah, come on, man, that was on the board. Like you should unless you are playing competitively, like
Yeah.
it like let someone know that they're walking into your onboard trick, right?
Dude, it is just, you have to remind people. First of all, especially in Commander, there's a high level of customization in Commander. A lot of people
Yeah.
proxying, getting stuff altered. Let's not even talk about the secret layer designs and like alt art treatments that are happening now. It's like, it's not easy to necessarily recognize a bunch of cards, even if they're on board and whatnot. But like, I love it if my board is completely covering my playmat. This is how I love playing Magic, right? But I'll be damned if I'm not reminding people of key pieces, or somebody's like, okay, I have this removal thing. What should I get rid of? I'm part of that conversation. I'll be like, dude, this card is the one thing that's keeping me from going off.
Oh
Like,
yeah.
you know, like this is gonna be the thing that's gonna like do this, or you know, I hate when people downplay when they're the threat, but I will
Yeah.
also argue when I'm not the threat. You know what I mean? So I want you
Yeah.
to know if we're playing and we're like, who's the threat at the table? I'll be like, well, it's me, but also, you know, there's no doubt about it. You got to be like the games become so much more fun if you can be more forthcoming about the actual state of it. It's not like we have much to hide besides what's in our hand. Like, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? It's just that's partly what I love about a graveyard strategy because I'm a big graveyard player, love black, all graveyard all day for me. It's just that like I'm kind of forecasting some stuff over here. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like you can see it. You can
Yeah.
see it. Before we get into your pet peeve or your story, I do want to say I noticed the Riftbound stuff in the background here.
Oh sure. Yeah.
And did you want to? Is there anything about? Because we could cut this out if Ken. Shout out to Ken, our editor, who's really wonderful and good at his job. But if you're like I don't feel like talking about Riftbound or anything,
No, I mean I'm happy to talk about Riftbound.
Sure.
I helped make Riftbound.
Hell yeah.
It is among the various games that I have worked on. Yeah, I was a consultant working on Riftbound from like pretty much the very beginning.
Awesome.
You know, like, I was brought in as the first external person from Riot to see the game. I think you know, like only sort of the team and whatever other like a team of at that point 3 people who had worked on it at that point. Yeah, I mean it was Riftbound's kind of crazy in that like it came together unbelievably fast. It was originally designed as a game for a market opportunity that Riot identified in China for a paper game because there's not a ton of competition for paper TCGs in China, and the League of Legends IP is super strong there. It's
Massive.
very, very popular.
Yeah.
So they basically were like, we want to try to make a paper TCG based on the League IP for China. And when I first started working on it, I came in for like one day and then for a week to work on it, and then like another week. I've worked on it. I don't even know, like a combination of, but like a bunch of times. And generally for like 3 to 5 days at a time, just going down to the Riot office every day. But at first it wasn't clear that anyone who I knew would ever see this game, right? Because it was just supposed to be this thing for China.
Yeah, sure.
But the reception to it was good enough with the audience that was sort of focus testing it or whatever in China and among the internal executive team and folks who saw it at Riot. They're like, we want to launch this worldwide. But that's why like the releases have been desynced, was because they already had like a publishing partner is like lined up in China.
Yeah.
They already had all of this ready to go before they even made the decision that they were going to also publish in English.
Totally.
And it's been crazy to see how popular it's been and super cool. I'm actually kind of bummed that I haven't been able to go to any of the events. They've all conflicted with stuff that I've had going on.
Yeah.
I really would have liked to go at least hang out, maybe compete in some of these events. Funnily enough, I am allowed to compete
You're
in
allowed
events.
to compete.
For
That's
Riftbound.
okay.
It is very funny. Like people at Riot who have never played the game are not allowed to compete. I have been one of the people who's involved in the game for the longest of anyone, but because I'm not actually a Riot employee, I'm allowed to compete if I want.
That's amazing. That's so funny.
It is funny. It's very funny.
I played the I guess the pre-release, like the event that led up to the release of the game. So like there was like a couple of like example decks that LGSs were delivered, and I played that and I was just like, oh man, this really ports over nicely. Like it's a very easy game to adapt to and to pick up, and it's quite intuitive. It's been I have to be careful getting into another game. Personally, like Magic is already such a siphon on the wallet. But I have a buddy of mine who picked up the intro box and a couple other decks, and we've played a couple times. It's just a lot of fun. The game is solid. It is just a really good time. It's like it's a game that I'm trying to introduce to my board game group as like an option for board game night rather than like, because there's no commander. But with them, they don't really play Magic. One of them took to Magic, but we just play separately. But yeah, Riftbound has been so much fun, and I was never a League of Legends guy. Had no idea it was League of Legends until I got to the event, and somebody's like, "Okay, do you want this like I forget his name, but like essentially an artifact guy. It's like he makes recruit tokens every turn.
Victor.
Victor,
Yeah.
that's right. Do you want this Victor deck or Jinx? And I was like, isn't Jinx from a game? Is this like are they already starting with Universes Beyond? Like, what's happening? And they were like,
they're all from the game.
It's all from the game. You don't know. Sorry, Ken. I forgot to mention, if you swear, you have to apologize to Ken, but you haven't been swearing at all. So. But literally, it was just like, I had no clue. I had no clue whatsoever. And it was just so fun to be like, so there's something behind this that makes a lot more sense now.
So it's funny. I've had people ask me like, what would like Universes Beyond you'd really like to see in Magic? And I was thinking about it, and I was like, what are the properties that I have like engaged with the most over the years?
Right.
And outside of Magic, it is League of Legends and World of Warcraft. And I helped make games based on both of those. So like,
that's right.
I have worked on games based on both of those already. So I don't really need them in Universe Beyond.
Yeah, they've got their own thing. I found out that there was a Final Fantasy TCG. I had no idea until
I didn't either. I didn't know that either.
Crazy. Honestly, I'm glad that wasn't a problem that precluded us from getting, because Final Fantasy was just a slam.
It's a great set. It's very cool.
Unbelievable. But yeah, I just like think about Universes Beyond. The only one that comes to mind for me that I'm like, well, that got the other ones. I think the only two that come to mind now are Mortal Kombat and the Saw franchise, and I'm not getting one of those for sure. Unless they do
it's all like all trap cards,
Yeah, no, dude, that's what's up. Give me a bunch of artifacts that can be played at instant speed if one condition is met. Give me something give me Jigsaw and Esper and make them dumb. Just very, very stupid. But I definitely think it's either that, or unless one day they make a Saturday Night Live set, I think my Universes Beyond wish list is just very, very unlikely. Although Mortal Kombat does seem more likely than anything. So Brian Kibler, you sweet, sweet angel, I appreciate you joining me today. We are heading into the point of the show where I have to ask you, do you have a story for me or a pet peeve around Magic that you would like to discuss on Am I the Bolcast?
I do have a pet peeve.
Let's get into it.
So, like spin down D20s.
Dog, okay, let's go.
So my pet peeve is not spin down D20s.
Okay.
My pet peeve is when people refuse to roll a spin down D20.
This is what I was expecting. When you started it. Thank God. Yes.
Because they're like, it's not random. It's like, well, yes, it is. It is random.
Entirely.
Because the distribution of values may not be like, as disparate or whatever on a particular side of it, but it's still random what you roll. And if you're worried about someone like getting so proficient at rolling a spin down D20 to a specific side, so they're more likely to get a higher or lower roll, they have much better things to do with their time. If they're like have that level of like dexterity and proficiency, they should be like in Vegas rolling craps.
Totally.
Right? Like they're not going to be at your commander table trying to go first. Right? Like,
what makes you think they can't replicate it when they identify the right side on a quote unquote real D20? You know what I mean?
Yeah. If someone's good enough, right, at this, that they can make a measurable difference in rolling a die, like that person like has way better things to do with their time.
I know. That's so crazy. This is such a funny one, and it's also so short, because what is there to discuss besides like, hey, I mean, the math backs this up, I guess. Like, if you're arguing with us, you're being a little jerk. Like, what do you want from it? It's insane.
I mean,
yeah,
I feel so strongly about this. I think it's so silly that like I legitimately like lose a little bit of respect for someone when they're like, oh no, we need the actual D20, not a spin down. I'm like, come on.
It's the same thing.
Like, please.
Roll. Just roll.
Just roll the die.
Just roll. Hey, you're going to say that? Guess what? We're pulling out D10s now. Do you want to talk D10s? Those go up and down in a direction. What? Are these bad now? No, come on. I don't get it. To me, it's like, I do have, when AFR came out, the first D&D set, I got a bundle and it came with a die. It came with like a randomized D20. You know what I mean? It came with like the quote unquote real deal. Yeah. And I've just kept that in my quiver for if I go somewhere and somebody insists, and I go, okay, well, here it is. We'll roll this one. Sure. No problem. You know? But it's so silly to me to, I don't know, man. Do you need the competition to start? Like, is this the competitive element to the game we're playing right now?
Yeah, it's also very funny. Like, not that I have any problem with it, but it's always funny when people like like present their deck to cut, or like
Oh,
care that whether they cut my deck. It's like, this is a game of Commander, right? Like,
oh, dude.
if you really deeply need to cheat me to like win at this game of Commander, you need this much more than I do,
That's my
right?
attitude
Like,
at pre-releases too. I do the same thing at sealed events. I don't care. This is the sweatiest I get, and I'm still like, you can cut my deck. I won't be touching yours. It's fine. Don't worry about it.
I mean, it is admittedly very different if I'm playing in a competitive environment,
Totally.
right? Like, I will watch my opponent shuffling their deck like a hawk,
Yes.
right? Like, I don't even lay out my 7 cards and pick them up until if I'm going second. I will not look at my cards until my opponent has like decided whether or not they are mulliganing, because I don't want them to be able to glean any information from my facial expressions looking at my hand about whether like I have a good or bad hand that can influence their decision. Like, that is the degree to which I have that perspective playing competitively, and it is the exact opposite if I'm like playing casually. It's like, I just do not care.
Yeah.
Right. Like, if you legitimately want to cheat me, go ahead. Like, you're just robbing yourself of an actual experience.
Exactly. There was this one sealed event. I played at a pre-release. It must have been the Avatar one or something, where I sat down against this guy and I presented my deck to cut. He cut it. I'm like, I'm not going to cut your deck because, it's a pre-release. We've already agreed to split the packs. Let's just like play. And he goes, I find it disrespectful for you to not cut my deck. I'm like, okay. I will respect you by cutting your deck, but I need you to understand, I think that's really ridiculous. And now, I would like to say we're gonna play for the packs. I think that's what we're gonna do. And if you're to me, it adds a layer of like competitiveness to an area where it wasn't there previously.
Sure.
To cut someone's deck, you're saying I don't trust you to be honest with me.
I mean, I totally get people for whom it's just like, it's just a reflex, right? Like, like, and when I started playing, Commander, I would do it, right? I would just present my deck because I'm just so used to it from playing competitively. But now that I've spent much more time playing Commander, it's just like, I don't care.
Yeah, who cares? Like, we're about to have the most fun / dumbest time we possibly can. Let's just embrace that feeling. Let's embrace that energy the whole way through. The idea of presenting a deck to cut is like saying we're going serious. This is the serious step,
Yeah.
I completely first of all, Brian Kibler, not the bolus on the D20 argument. And also bonus, not necessarily pet peeve, but like completely agree. If you need to cheat at a pre-release event or a Commander, hey man, we can pause the game and have a conversation. I am a good listener. What's going on?
Like, listen, there's you can find some outlet in your life. I've actually had the same kind of mentality, because you know that I do like foam fighting stuff, right?
Yes,
like live action role playing, foam fighting, and like what I've seen people like cheat in like foam fighting events and stuff. It's like, the whole point of this is that we're just kind of having fun and like being like competitive in this thing, which has no real stakes, right? Like, if you cheat in something, that the prize is you get like a belt flag that says you won, right? Are you just gonna look at that for the rest of your life and be like, I cheated to get this, I'm awesome?
Brutal,
right? Like,
brutal feeling too. Just the idea,
and
of
everyone else will
know,
right?
Yes,
Like,
exactly.
if you argue with someone about this, it's like, come on, man. Like,
are we really doing this? Come on, please, just be honest with yourself. You're gonna enjoy life a lot more.
Yeah,
it's gonna be a lot better. Yeah, dude, it's a crazy thing to do altogether. Cheating at anything that you take even a little bit seriously, and like I don't want to say like Commander's not like, take it seriously. We invest so much time and effort into it. It's obviously serious to us. Cheating at Commander, even, what are we doing? What are we even doing with our time today? Come on. And that's why the bracket conversation goes way further than just, what bracket is your deck? Let's get a sense on each other. I remember Rachel said it on like a an episode of the Command Zone a long time ago. They were talking about like how do you find a play group, and she was like, "You're dating each other. Look, okay, do with that information what you want, but you're like you're trying to start like a regular relationship with people that you hang out with and respect and can be open and talk to. That's dating somebody, buddy. I don't know what to tell you. You're going out on dates, you know? And so it's like, if you're, make peace with that idea. Go out there and be a cool person. Put your best foot forward.
For sure.
Brian Kibler, buddy, I really appreciate you coming on today. And I want to ask, how do you want people to check your stuff out? Where you want them to point their eyes and ears?
Well, you can find our videos on Commander at Home on YouTube. I also have a personal YouTube channel, which is just BM Kibler, which I have Magic Arena content, Hearthstone content, sometimes commentary about, various things in the gaming industry and such. And you can find me on social media. I'm BM Kibler everywhere. I don't use X anymore because it's successful, but basically everywhere else. That's where you can find me.
That's right. Yeah, don't use that stupid site. I'm still trying to wean myself off of it.
I actually feel bad about myself because I just called it X instead of Twitter.
Dude, I'm right with you.
That makes me feel bad, but it's bad, and I don't want to react. Like if I call it Twitter, I'll kind of miss it.
There's a bit of a legacy to Twitter. There was there's a whole identity within Twitter.
It was actually a cool place for a while.
Dude, it was so cool. At midnight, being on TV and seeing people post jokes and being like, "Oh, it's 2009. Let's have a good time." You're like, "Yeah, that's what Twitter used to mean." This isn't Twitter. This is a nightmare machine where the news is all people screaming and then the government ignoring it. Who knows? You know what I mean? Yay!
Sure to end on a great note here.
Wait. Okay, before we go, the turtles are coming. We like the turtles, and then we're going back to school. Strixhaven's happening again. Okay, bye, everybody.
There's some cool stuff.
I'm not gonna lie. I am pleasantly surprised by plenty of the stuff in the Ninja Turtle set. There's a lot of really interesting designs, but some of the art does make me physically ill. Okay, I'm excited for Strixhaven. The Commander legend, like the legends at the beginning, at the helm of the precons.
There's some sick stuff.
Come on now, don't get me started on Dina. I've just started playing green again last year. I'm not. God, I'm not going to have like 9 green decks by the end of this one. Come on now. All right, that'll do it for us at Am I the Bolcast. Just make sure to send us an email at amithebolus@gmail.com. We do mailbag episodes where you will get your story read on this podcast and also maybe featured in the article series on edhrec.com. Shout out to my co-hosts Michael and Morgan. We'll be back next week with another mailbag episode. And as always, thank you so much. Good night, everybody. Thanks, Brian. Have a good night.